We are Witches Who Podcast.
Hey, Dee.
Hey, Shelby.
Anything weird happened to you lately?
Weird things happen all the time. But this time, I'm going to share with you about the dream space. The dream space has been really weird.
Yeah, me too.
So the other night, I go to bed, I'm going to say relatively early, which is still 11 p.m. Pacific time. And my husband tends to go to bed a little bit later because he's like working in the garage doing other things. Anywho, he went to bed someplace close to 3 o'clock in the morning. And I decided to, at that time, my bladder decided to need to go pee. When he came back, the weird thing that happens sometimes is like, I feel like his energy influences my energy. And this time, he like wants to come and cuddle me. You know, and I'm trying to get comfy. Just woke up.
Just like,
yes.
Yeah,
I'm
I
all
feel
like, you know, I love you.
I'm just kidding. I love you, Christian. All right.
I love you. I need my space. Right. So suddenly my left knee sometimes tends to like lock or something.
Oh.
And I'm trying to like breathe, not scream because I'm like in pain. And he's trying to cuddle me. Anyhow. I'm like,
I'm irritated
move.
listening to this.
I was like trying to push him and not wake him because he's like heavy asleep now. And I'm like awake in pain. And he's like, oh, what? Like he kind of wakes up. He's like, oh, wait, what happened? And I was like, I'm in pain. I was like, little room. And I think he must have heard hug me tighter or hold me closer, tiny dancer, you know? And he like, I feel his weight and I'm like, I need to like bend my knee and extend it. But now I have this man on, like, I felt like he was on top of me, but he wasn't. It was just like
one arm.
I'm like half asleep. And suddenly I'm just like, you're on top of me, like pushing him away. And finally, you know, he's all like, oh my gosh, like rolled over. But from there, I could not go back to sleep. Like I was in that in-between space.
Oh, yeah.
So I always talk about we either have dreams or we have experiences. If you can remember it very vividly, like what it smelled, how it felt, all that, is more than likely that you have an experience, more like astral travel, like you were actually somewhere else and you were not just like your subconscious dream state coming in and out. So I was like in that in between of coming in and out. And I just felt like so weird, like these surges through my body of energy, because now I'm trying to calm my mind to go back to bed because I know I have to wake up early and it's already probably like 3:30 in the morning, which yes, the witchy hour. But I'm attempting to go back to sleep and I just begin to see these lights we have like a screen. Well, it's like the door to outside from our room to like the patio. And I can just see this like twinkling lights by the door. But I was like, okay, maybe it's about to be daytime. Like I've been awake for so long.
And there's no cars that could be like the way your bedroom
No.
faces. There's no way that
There's
a car that
nothing.
could
No,
do it.
there's no lights coming in from that way at all. And we do know that my land is cosmic. So a lot of things do happen, but it was just really interesting sensation. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm dreaming. And I was like, no, I am pretty awake. And I can see like these little lights. I'm like, oh, well, maybe it's already daytime. Like it's the sun is starting to come in.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. It was just like this twinkle lights. And I was like, okay, one, I have options. One, I can freak out. Two, I can say, what's up? You know, who are you and why are you coming here to visit me?
Yeah.
And from there, I just kind of like begin to breathe a little bit, allow them to come through, and I crash. I crashed really hard, but I just went into almost, it felt like Alice in Wonderland going down the rabbit hole. And just, it felt like a psychedelic trip. I don't know if you ever seen Alex Gray art.
Yeah.
Like that. But instead of seeing it, I was feeling it. Like I was feeling the art,
wild.
like those visuals, but instead of seeing them, I can feel. It was really weird. And then my alarm rang, and I felt like I was just in that sleep in between for like 5 minutes, and I was pretty exhausted. So I know.
What? I have
know.
so many questions. My first thought is you just got abducted by aliens.
Oh my gosh, I thought about that too. I know, because I've been resisting the abductions just because I know the grays are like have no real emotion. And
Yeah, I've heard they're like drones, like little, like they're not actually even real. They're just like little drones, like creatures.
ooh,
Yeah.
okay, I need to learn more about that.
Oh, I have.
I've
gone down that rabbit hole hardcore.
No, I love it. I love it. But yeah, with the grays, I know I've been hearing a lot about the abductions and usually how they just want to, they do want to take care of you and just kind of like fix you in a way if you're
Yeah,
all messed
I've heard
up.
that, yeah.
But I'm like, I want somebody to smile at me and be like, hey, Dee, you're going to be okay. Don't freak out.
Yeah.
You look different and it's okay. And so do you.
I mean, that might happen. I've read like, okay, that's a whole other episode that we can get
Okay,
into
we'll
for
have to.
sure because I've got a lot of stories for real.
Yes.
That's so fascinating though. I'm really
crazy.
curious. We should do a regression and see what actually happens. Okay, anyways.
Yes. I'm all
So
for
since
it.
we're talking about dreams, I had a crazy freaking dream. We'll make it quick. The other night, because you were saying like experiences or dreams, right? Okay, well, maybe you have some insight into this one. I had a dream and it was super weird. It was like, I was like, maybe I should write a book about this because it was like almost post-apocalyptic, but not really. Where during the day everything was normal, but at nighttime, like everybody had to hunker down everything and like, put boards on their windows, all the 9 yards, because monsters came out at nighttime. Yeah, it was very strange. So it was like dusk and we're like, okay, we have to go. Like we can't be outside and we're driving in the car and it's me and Christian, but I can't see him. I just know he's there. And then all of a sudden I turn and he's gone and I'm driving alone in that dusk with all the monsters out. So I'm like trying to get home, being like, okay, maybe he got there before me, whatever. It was like this weird thing. But the whole dream I was like searching for him the whole time. I like couldn't find him and I knew I needed to find him, And then, we ended up in the hospital because somebody got eaten by a monster, weird, just super weird. And then it was like the next day and we're at a restaurant and this part was the part that was super vivid and it was all very vivid, but this part was really real. So we're sitting at this huge table, just like a whole community of people that basically, I don't know.
But they're still within the monster apocalyptic.
Yes, it's still the
series.
same.
Okay.
Yeah, the same type of thing. And so we're all sitting at this big table. I don't really even know who the people are. I can't see any of their faces, except Mike Tyson and Adam Sandler were there, like giving a show. And I'm like, what? This is so weird. And I remember like getting up and leaving because I'm like, I still can't find my husband. And so I'm like outside, I'm trying to find him. Like, I can't find him. Maybe he's got back inside. So I like go back inside and they had been discussing me somehow.
Mike Tyson and Adam Sandler?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And then
I
I
love how
walk
the
in.
world is going to poop and it's like these two people are doing a comedy show.
Yeah, and they're
Okay, I love
concerned
it.
about my well-being.
Yeah.
Apparently. And so when I walk in, they all stop and look at me and they're like, oh, there she is. And Mike Tyson walks up to me and like puts his hand on my shoulder and looks me in the eyes and he goes, it's okay to just stop and go away for a while.
Oh,
And I'm like,
that's so wise.
like what? Like what?
But where's my husband?
Yeah, I'm like, exactly. But I'm like, but who are you? Like, I was so confused.
Like that helps, but not right now.
Yeah. And the weirder part too was that night before I went to bed, I like set an intention. I was like, all right, listen, spirit, like use my dreams to communicate to me like a message that I need to hear. Because like I need some guidance kind of thing. And that was the dream I had. I'm like, what? So all else fails in a post-apocalyptic world, find my husband and Mike Tyson. Those are the two answers apparently.
I think I can interpret your dream because I'm going to stick with Mike Tyson's wise words. So I think what that means is like you and I need to get a little vacation, just the two of us paid by our husbands.
Oh, that's a
and we
great
should
idea.
go somewhere.
Yes.
So
Okay, Mike, Christian, you're listening, right?
yes, we would like to go to Bali.
I manifested it, remember?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
anyways. So that was my weird dream.
That is crazy. We'll
Yeah.
definitely do an episode on dreams because there's
Yeah.
so much to unpack there that I think will be fascinating and
Yeah, I
so
agree.
helpful for so many people.
So
Yay.
thanks for sharing your dream. So that's not what we're talking about today. Today we are diving into the history of witches and their evolution and how that's now become modern spirituality. But before that, we should probably introduce ourselves. Howdy, everybody. I'm Shelby.
And I am Dee.
We are Witches Who Podcast, and here we go.
Yes.
All right, so history of witches. Um, there's so much here. So I know we both did some research about history and evolution of witches and just everything, right? So why don't you kick it off over there?
I'm gonna kick it off with the pedia, right? We're gonna go straight.
Pedia.
We're gonna go straight from the pedia. What the pedia says is which from the old English. I don't know if this is Yshi or YC or Waiki, but for everyone listening, it's WICCE. But the C's have the little dot on top. I don't know what if they become like a sh sound or a k sound or something. But it says the masculine warlock from Warloga is of different etymology. Okay. Also, just for everyone, English is not my first language. Some words are hard for me to say, and clearly this one is. Okay. It's a term rooted in European folklore and superstition for a practitioner of witchcraft, magic or sorcery, traditionally associated with the malevolent magic, with those accused of witchcraft being the target of witch hunts. In the modern era, the term has taken on different meanings. In literature, a witch can now simply refer to an alluring woman capable of bewitching others.
Ooh, I like that.
I know.
Alluring.
In neo-pagan religions such as Wicca, the term has meanwhile been adopted as the female term for an adherent. What's an adherent? Like adjusted? Okay. Anywho, we don't know words apparently. Too fancy. The PETA is too fancy for me. But yeah, this is what the PETA is saying, and I know we're gonna dive into more on the history.
Yeah.
So, do you want to take us on?
Yeah, I
on
love that. So I did like thank you for that. I did some research kind of just around like the earliest like known like documented mention of a witch, and I actually was super surprised because it came back to the Bible. And there's like that little story in First Samuel where it mentions the Witch of Endor, where she summons the spirit of the prophet Samuel.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was super fascinating. That was all the way in 931 BC. And
I know, but in the spirit helps him defeat the Philistine army.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't read that far.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, this.
Yeah, I know, but it's crazy.
fascinating,
And
yeah.
the early witches were people who practiced like witchcraft, using the magic spells and calling upon spirits to help or bring about change. And I'm thinking, how different is that from what we do now? Aren't we
Yeah.
all manifesting all the time
Yeah, exactly.
and
exactly.
meditating?
It's just the word witch has been so like drugged through the mud so many times, even though what it really means is what we do now.
I know, and early
magic,
witches was also like the thought of being like pagans, worshiping the devil.
Yeah, and Wicca, when you say Wicca, immediately it goes to devil worshiping and goats' heads and blood.
And that's not what it is.
Not
at all.
even a little bit. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I see.
Just real quick, this is all our opinion, so just don't take take it as our opinion and move on with your life. Okay.
And make your own opinion.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so super fascinating stuff there, but it goes back even further than the Bible. We often hear Hecate, and you see like the little geometry, and I can throw something on the screen if you guys are watching, but the Hecate symbol, and I've always been like, what the heck is this? Like I see it everywhere. It's usually depicted with the triple goddess, and the triple goddess is, in what I know of the triple goddess, is usually the Morrigan, but it actually goes back even further to Hecate. And she was known as the first witch, essentially, and she's actually a Greek goddess.
Do we have a year for her or no? No? Okay. It's
Probably,
okay.
I have like a whole thing.
No, it's fine. I was just curious, I was like, okay, how early is their earliest witch being depicted?
I don't know, in Greek times.
But but you can see like the Bible always took it on, like witches just.
Yeah, they take what they want and then they turned it. I mean, who wrote the Bible, right? Like, I mean,
Men.
yeah.
Human men.
Yeah, human men, which is fine. So actually, when I started doing research on the origin of Hecate, so I have this like whole little thing that I kind of pulled up about her because she's so fascinating. Hecate, this is just one story of her. So Hecate's depiction in the Homeric hymn of Demeter is perhaps her most well-known literary appearance, sorry. In this hymn, Hecate and the sun god Hyperion hear Persephone's cries when Hades abducts her.
Oh,
Yeah. So after Demeter and had searched for her daughter for 9 days, Hecate came to her on the 10th with a torch in her hands. So that's why you always see Hecate depicted with a torch. The goddess told Demeter that all she had heard, but did not know how or who had taken her daughter. Once Persephone was reunited with Demeter, Hecate embraced that girl. She would become Persephone's companion in the underworld when the girl returned to Hades every year. And yeah, so she was
Wow.
basically like her.
So on the enlightenment scale, where do you think Hecate is?
You know what? I think she gets a bad rap, but it's like the more I read about her, the more that I realize that she's not scary, because she looks scary when you like look at her image on like the internet or whatever. She's depicted as a terrifying thing. But
also it's Kali.
so does Kali, you know. But I feel like Hecate on the enlightenment scale, like she's up there, you know, because all like, especially in this specific story, because she's
helping.
She's helping and she's supporting and she's protecting Demeter, you know. Persephone didn't ask her to do that. You know what I mean?
I know. No, I love that. And just for everyone listening, Kali is a Hindu goddess.
We can do a whole thing about those too. I know. Right?
And the goddesses.
Yeah, so those are like the two things that I like, the early witches that I found. And obviously we all know about the witch trials. So before that happened,
The witch hysteria.
yeah, all that stuff, you know, and before all that happened, like witches were known to be healers, just like, you know, Hecate, like she was this, you know, goddess of not the underworld, that's a different, but like this goddess of, what is it, magic and witchcraft and magic.
Yeah.
And what is witchcraft and magic? It's working with nature and the elements. And she utilized her, you know, resources to support people around her. Like that, those were witches, like healers and, you know, different practitioners around nature. Like that was what the witch was.
Absolutely.
And then the witch trials came along. And why? Why did the witch trials? And so the witch trials are when, you know, they burned all the witches. If you were,
I actually have a little bit of between on that. So the witch, like, if it's okay, if I'll share about that. The witch hysteria really took a hold in Europe during the mid 1400s. Maybe I should have this so it's a little closer. Not in my face. If you're watching the video, Shelby's like, make sure put the papers not in your face. She's smart and she has reading it from her phone. I'm old school. So the witch hysteria really took hold in Europe during the mid 1400s when many accused witches confessed, often under torture, bastards, to a variety of wicked behaviors. Within a century, witch hunts were common and most of the accused were executed by burning at the stake or hanging. I know I was definitely burned. I do have some neck pain sometimes, so I wonder if I was also hung at some point. Single women, widows, and other women on the margins of society were specially targeted. I say, what the hey?
wait, say that again.
Sorry. Okay.
Who was especially targeted?
So single women, widows, and other women of the margins of society.
Got it.
Were spirit. I'm like, why are you putting our, you know, single girls out there and be like, oh, you're not married. Yeah. You don't have a man. Yeah. Exactly. You must be a witch. Let's burn you. Why are you having so much fun? Why are you so healthy? Why does your skin look so good? Why I don't have a man. Probably in those times, right? It's like, why do I need a drunk?
And have 17 kids.
Yeah. So, but between the years of 1500 and 1660, up to 80,000 suspected witches were put to death in Europe, and around 80% of them were women, thought to be in cahoots with the devil and filled with lust. Germany had the highest witchcraft execution rate, while Ireland had the lowest. So the publication, which actually I learned about this other book, which I was not familiar with. There was a publication, it's called the Malleus Maleficarum, anyhow, words, written by two well-respected German Dominicans in 1488, likely spurred the witch mania that got viral. So see, back in the day, you went viral too. Not only with smallpox type of viral, but different. The book, usually translated as "The Hammer of Witches," was essentially a guide on how to identify and hunt. And interrogate witches. So
it was like literally like how to murder women.
Two well-respected German Dominicans.
Well respected.
Yeah, like that's not no. And they, label witchcraft as heresy and quickly became the authority for the Protestants and Catholics trying to flush out witches living among them. So they're like, "Hey, we wrote this book." But then here the Protestants, yeah, and the Catholics are like, "Okay, we're gonna use your book to go hunt the witches. How about your own book of the Bible?
Yeah.
What happened there?"
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So for more than 100 years, the book sold more copies of any other book in Europe except the Bible.
Wow.
Come on. So from there, we go to the Salem witch trials, which I know you have a lot to share
Yeah.
there.
Well, that is super fascinating too. So it's just so insane to me to think like, okay, so it started as like people got smallpox and then they're blaming all this on, like on hysteria. So you're telling me only men got hysteria from smallpox and decided to murder women, or did women also get hysteria from smallpox and that's why they're witches? What is the
I don't know. It
they
sounds like
think they
both.
can do magic?
Yeah.
Like, because they have some like the hysteria from the smallpox, or their
Well,
brains are imbalanced.
Actually, they speak a little bit here more on it. Maybe I should.
Yeah, please
Maybe I'll
enlighten me.
And let me enlighten you with this story. As witch hysteria decreased in Europe, it grew in the New World, aka the USA.
US, yeah.
Which was really, sorry, let me move again. Which was ruling from wars between the French and the British, a smallpox epidemic, and the ongoing fear of attacks from neighboring Native American tribes. So we already had a whole stuff going on, right?
Yeah.
And so the tense atmosphere was ripe for finding escape. I'm so sorry. The tense atmosphere was ripe from finding scapegoats. Probably the best known witch trials took place in Salem, Massachusetts in 1692. Here I seem so seen. But there's this little story here that I found it fascinating. I know. Thank you. The Salem witch trials begin when 9-year-old Elizabeth Paris and 11-year-old Abigail Williams began suffering from fits, body contortionists, and uncontrolled screaming. Today it's believed that they were poisoned by a fungus that caused spasms and delusion. They didn't believe that back in the day.
No.
As more young women began to exhibit symptoms, mass hysteria ensues. And 3 women were accused of witchcraft: Sarah Good, Sarah Osborne, and Tituba, an enslaved woman owned by Paris' father. Tituba confessed to being a witch and began accusing others of using black magic. That's when we turn probably on against ourselves.
Yeah, that makes sense.
On June 10, Bridget Bishop became the first accused witch to be put to death during the Salem witch trials.
Everybody knows that name.
I know. And is it Bridget or is it Bridget?
Bridget.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. When she was hanged at the Salem gallows. But ultimately, around 150 people were accused and 18 were put to death. Yeah. Women weren't the only victims of the Salem witch trials. 6 men were also convicted and executed. And I know you know more about this. Who are the men?
Okay.
Yeah, I know you have this.
It's really funny. I feel like when we did research, we did a really good job. Like, we didn't rehearse this at all. And you like went into certain areas and then I went into certain areas deeper, and it was just like worked out perfectly. Sorry, but I just had to call that out. But yeah. So there were men that got executed and accused of being witches, which is, I guess.
Were they widow? Were they a thing to society? Like Maybe. They were saying, were they single?
Okay, so how many? You said 80,000, right?
80,000 the first time.
First time. Okay, so the only documented cases of men being executed, guess how many? You probably already know.
Well, the 6.
Yeah, there's 6.
There's 6 guys.
6.
That's
not
it. There's
1,000,
no more.
Not 100,
know,
just 6. Just 6.
Oh.
Okay, anyways, but that's just documented. Who knows what actually happened, you know? But I just wrote
Maybe
down
there were 3.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, it's probably, you're right, exaggerated.
I'm kidding.
It's always the inverse, right? Anyways, so there was one that I only found a few stories. Like, it just says 6 men, and then there's only like a couple people listed. But this one like really ground my gears, you know? So Giles Corey was an 81-year-old farmer who was crushed to death in 1692 after being accused of witchcraft. Oh. He was pressed to death with weights as part of a coercive measure called peine forte et dure. I don't know. I probably just butchered that. Which is a French law for a long and hard punishment.
Oh my
They literally took
gosh.
weights and just crushed him until he couldn't breathe anymore. Because he was accused.
He was a
of-
farmer,
He was
basically.
81 years old. Oh my! Like, just let the man live.
Yeah.
He doesn't have that much. Like, 81 years old in the 1600s. That's
And
like,
he was
that's
still
insane.
a threat to society.
Yeah.
They must take him out
Like,
because the old man.
And a farmer, so he's had a hard life. He's also in his 80s. Like, who lives to be in their 80s? That
I
maybe
know.
that's part of it.
Oh yeah, he was like still
He was too
alive
old
when he
to be. Yeah.
to still be alive back
Yeah.
in the
Exactly.
day.
How gnarly is
That
that?
is crazy.
Like, yes, hanging and burning, but to just crush somebody.
No,
Like,
no,
oh my God, that's insane.
no, no. Okay,
Like, why?
I don't like it.
Me neither.
Okay.
Sorry, this is a very morbid episode. It gets better, you guys.
Massachusetts wasn't the first of the 13 colonies to obsess about witches. In Windsor, Connecticut, in 1647, Alice Young was the first person in America executed for witchcraft. Before Connecticut's final witch trial took place in 1697, 46 people were accused of witchcraft in that state, and 11 were put to death for the crime. However, my Virginia lovers, in Virginia, people were less frantic about witches. In fact, in Lower Norfolk County in 1655, a law was passed making it a crime to falsely accuse someone of witchcraft. Way to go, VA.
Fine. When was that?
1655.
Okay, interesting.
Still, witchcraft was a concern, and about 24 witch trials, mostly of women, took place in Virginia between 1626 and 1730. None of the accused were executed, though. Way to go, VA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
So, are witches real? One of the most famous witches in Virginia history is Grace Sherwood, whose neighbors alleged killed their pigs and hexed their cotton. Other accusations follow, and Sherwood was brought to trial in 1706. Is that more of just gossip, maybe?
That's kind of what it sounds like.
I
yeah.
know.
I feel like it's just like, it was like a trend. Oh, you're a witch. Burn her or him or whatever.
But check what the court decided to do with her. The court decided to use a controversial water test to determine her guilt or innocence. Sherwood's arms and legs were bound, and she was thrown into a body of water. It was thought if she sank, she was innocent. If she floated, she was guilty. She did not sink and was convicted of being a witch. She
What?
wasn't killed though, but in prison and for 8 years.
Okay, I have full body chills right now. What? Okay,
I know.
I just have to like tangent on that story. I've never heard that story before. And okay, so I know like I don't know if I peeped this in the last episode or not, but about birthmarks.
Oh,
So birthmarks are said like when you're born with certain marks on your skin, that's usually where you like impact happened on your body, like when you died in a past life, or like it's like trauma happened in your body. So I have birthmarks on both of my arms and right underneath both of my butt cheeks, both sides, and on my ankles. And I always used to have this dream that I was drowning and I was bound. By my legs and my arms, I was bound and I was drowning in water. And I've had a fear of
I
water
know.
like my whole
Yeah.
life. Like when I was a little kid, I used to tell my mom, like before I was even submerged, I would freak out. I didn't want to take baths, nothing. I did not want my head underwater. And I would tell my mom, like super young, like when I was 2, maybe, that when you're underwater, you see bubbles going up. Like, oh my gosh, like that story, like I'm pretty sure that was me. Like that happened
I don't
to me.
doubt that you were Sarah. I wanted to say
What
I was-
is happening?
what is her name again?
I don't know. I forgot.
Grace. You were Grace.
No.
Sherwood. Grace Sherwood is her name.
Oh my gosh. Okay, it gets even better. My mom wanted to name me Grace.
Oh, gives me like the
What?
good chills.
That
Shelby,
is insane.
are you the reincarnation of Grace Sherwood? Because I have
Sherwood.
questions.
I don't know. Let me try to channel her. Real quick. I'm like, look how do you do that
Oh
again?
gosh,
Oh my
it's so
gosh.
funny.
Wow, that was okay.
She went to jail for 8 years, but I'm like, come on, they have to throw
8
the woman.
years?
It's like, how long was she under? She floated. So it's like, oh, you're a witch. It's like maybe
Yeah,
she
we have
just has.
boobs. Okay, they
I-
float.
Not everything has
They're
the
flotation
same.
devices.
Oh, gosh.
That's why they're built in.
My goodness.
Oh my gosh, that's wild. I have this fun, I know like we talked about Salem witch trials, and that was in the 1700s, right?
Yeah. Yeah. In Virginia, the trials, her trial was in 1706.
Yeah. So I have like the last known execution was in 1782, and it was in Switzerland.
Ooh, what happened there?
I don't know. That's all I got. But I was like, that was fascinating. Like it started like 1300s was like the beginning of it. Like it was pretty inconsistent of people.
But that we know of.
That we know of, yeah.
Like,
and then,
I bet you, women we continue to be
yeah, probably
prosecuted.
maybe we even still are now. Who knows? You know what I mean?
I know.
The whole shadow government. Okay, just kidding. Oh my God, take that out. I'm probably gonna get people are gonna show up at my house after because I said that. But the exact number of people executed for witchcraft is super controversial. But estimated range, okay, this is the funny part to me, from 10,000 to 9 million. That is such a huge range. Oh. And then it says most historians estimate about 40,000 to 100,000 people were executed just based on public record. But what? 10,000 to 9 million? Really?
No,
like,
they're just like,
Like, we don't know. Just say that.
Yeah. No. Well, on the net, everybody, wants to know something.
Yeah, they have to have a number or they have to have concrete, but not everything is like that. And especially then, like nobody was really worried about documenting stuff back then, Yeah. Also, this is a big thing, a big controversial topic that they probably just wanted to be hush hush, like, what we did to the Native Americans too. It's just like, let's be quiet about it. Let's not talk about it because it's not cute. It's not pretty. Okay, well,
I know. Like right now when you're saying that is like, the hysteria came to the New World, and the United States was like fighting France. Britain had smallpox epidemic, and the ongoing fear of attacks from neighboring Native American tribes, like ongoing fear of it. I was like, please. Well, yeah, you're invaders. You're bringing disease. Like, come on.
Yeah, I love that. So, I hate that, but like that's,
I know. No, I get it. I get it.
Well, that was a fun ride. Now I'm all riled up, but it's fascinating that's where it started and how it's evolved into what it is now, right? Like it's such a trend, which is such a trendy thing right now, which I feel like just kind of came about, right? It was really more of like what in 18th, 19th, 20th century where that really started to like take off in a positive way.
But you know what? Let me just share that before that. It's still happening, even though we're like, oh, maybe still. Oh, yeah. Actually, I have a little research that I did was like witches, whether accused or actual or accused, still face persecution and death. Several men and women suspected of using witchcraft have been beaten and killed in Papua New Guinea since 2010.
What?
Wow. Including a young mother who was burned alive. Similar episodes of violence against people accused of being witches have occurred in Africa, South America, the Middle East, and immigrant counties in Europe and here in the United States.
Really? Wow. Yeah. Under like what law? Like what?
I don't know.
That's insane.
Under the law of somebody saying,
like that's just murder.
Yeah. I turned yellow because, she gave me something to drink and maybe they just need sunlight.
Okay. Like it's not my problem.
You have jaundice.
Yeah. It's the witch's fault.
Yeah.
Witch. Okay. If you want to play that game, then every single doctor is a witch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They're all witch doctors. I don't know.
It's insane to me.
Okay.
Yeah. Which actually, it started out as healers and, women that knew how to cook and use food or plants as nutrients and food as nutrients. Those were the doctors, right? Back millions of years ago or whatever. Not that far ago, but you get it. Which is the doctor. They were the doctors, right? But the evolution of witchcraft really turned into, it went from this healer, this sacred woman who was trying to keep, clean and her tribe healthy, to instilling fear and panic, all through control. Right?
Yeah, because when you're healing from the earth, you can go and forge your own medicine. You're not making money. Somebody else is not making money.
Yeah, it was never about money before. Yeah, and the church swooped in, saw a perfect opportunity, the hysteria with smallpox and this thing that was happening with these poor women that have freaking imbalances in their brain and were having convulsions and whatever. And they're like, oh, that's devil work. That is the devil possessing them, and we need to spread this. They found widespread panic, which stimulated the witch trials.
Yeah.
And the patriarchal society stepped forward and was like, okay, we need to take control. We need to keep our women in check because they are going to spread this devil magic to the masses, right? And whether the intention was there or not, it still happened, right?
But you know what? Even with that, sometimes I'm thinking, like, especially back in the day, they would just, let's say a woman knew too much of something that she was not supposed to know.
Yeah, she was stepping outside the societal
Yeah,
norm.
or it was just like, she's a witch. Like, let's just accuse her of a witch. And the word of the men had way more weight than her own word. And then she would just, like, there would not be much question, you know?
Yeah, there was, our word didn't matter. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and then, fast forwarding to now, women want their power back.
Yes.
There's been this huge feminist movement in the last, like 100 years or so that women are stepping more forward. They are using their voices. They are, tapping into that ancestral power and taking it back.
Yeah.
And now we're being called witches because we have a voice. And we're passionate about women's rights. So now we're a witch. We're going back into our ancestral roots of being healers and working with the land and herbs and, remembering how to take care of our families and our communities in a different way. And there's a lot of polarity there with the masculine and the feminine energies. Like, we need both. There's toxic femininity and there's toxic masculinity, and there is a healthy balance of both. And I think that's where this negative connotation of the witch comes from, where it's like, oh, she's a witch because she's just too far in the feminist, pot over there. You know what I mean?
And to align with your intuition, because sometimes they'll be like, hey, I really feel like maybe, don't go driving up that hill at night.
Yeah.
Or come down that mountain or things like that. And then they get like in a car accident. It's like, she told me not to do, she knew she did something to me and that's why I crashed, or things like that. It's like they were really tapping into their intuition, their femininity. They were using their gifts for good, which of course were some witches that did bad stuff.
Yeah, that's a very real thing as well, which we should
It
talk about.
is, but on something like that, I actually one time when I was doing my Reiki attunements, my Reiki master, she told me, she's like, you were a bad witch at some point. She's like, you were a good witch that turned bad witch.
Oh, wow.
And what had happened is that, without going into too many details, but I was like a healer. I was like a good witch, like I was giving medicine. And then they started to harass me and accuse me of other things. And then I was like, well, okay, now you all are up in my business, trying to hurt me and kill me. And so now I became a bad witch. I was like, okay, now I'm going to make your thingy turn green or something,
Mold and fall off.
but it's crazy.
Interesting.
So,
Yeah, it's wild. And so that evolution happened when we just got sick and tired of it, right? Which is maybe, when your past life, your evolution was to just become a bad witch because you're like, screw it. Like, you're calling me a bad witch anyways, and so I'm just going to do it anyways. But now it's like this women's empowerment, right? In modern society. And when you think about like right now, just point blank, witch, what pops into your head?
Well, if I think of, now, sorry, I have like a little time to think, but if I think of like just maybe not with all my awakening, my enlightenment or my wokeness, but before, if I would somebody say witch, the image that will pop into my head, there's several that like come one right after another.
Yeah.
One is the Bat Witch from Wizard of Oz. I forgot.
Totally.
Yeah. And then the one from Snow White, like pop right there. And then the one from Sleeping Beauty, like those pop like immediately. It's like, those were like all these, and I'm like, they're all like Hollywood characters that were in still.
Totally.
So, but now that when I hear the word, like I hear witch, what do I think? I think wise woman.
I like that.
But,
yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Pre-enlightenment, post-enlightenment.
Yeah, I think just like the first like snap judgment for me would be like the Halloween witch, right? Like the green, like Elphaba from Wicked, or like the Wizard of Oz, like the Wicked Witch of the West or whatever. But then again, even in the Wizard of Oz, there's still Glinda, the good witch, right? And it's so crazy that, it became the word witch was meant to instill fear. Even in modern day culture, there's still, it started off as a scary something to fear, right? And so that's where the green skin came from, the, boils on your face, because they wanted it to be a bad thing, right? Because they saw how much power came from, keeping us quiet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you think about broomsticks, black cats, cauldrons, pointy hats, pointy noses, green skin, the weird shoes, right? And there's stories behind all of those things that have just been like morphed into, what they are to, like, just the people don't even know the folklore behind them, right? Like black cats.
Yeah.
Like, why a black cat?
Yeah, so I heard, and I was telling you this a little bit earlier, and I know you heard it as well. I couldn't find it on the internet, so I was like, I know I've heard this somewhere. Maybe I read it in a book, but why the witches? Well, the green skin, I don't know. When you were talking about that, I was like, well, maybe she has a mask on. It's like boils on her skin. Well, probably some acne is coming out, so she's just letting it go, right? But I remember I read something. I can't remember which pope it was, and he decided, and it was during the plague times, and of course in Europe somewhere. And this pope decided to just like go, kill the witches, probably because they read the book that those Germans, were talking about. And there were these women that they were called witches, but they live out in the woods away from the big city where the plague was really going. And they kept their houses clean. So that's why they had a broom. It's always depicted with a broom because they would clean their houses. And the plague was being carried by rodents. So they have these black cats that could smell the plague, and they would eat the rodents. And then they have like the witches' hats that they said, but they actually didn't look like that.
Yeah.
They were just like big hats.
Like big sun hats.
Yes, because it was a sun hat. It was like literally that. So, and that's, a lot of the depiction of witches, which were just women of nature, healers, out away from, don't bother me. I don't have to be in the big city around all the people. I want to be more away so I don't die. And that's why they're not dying. That's why they were called the witch.
Because they knew how to keep their house clean. That's great. Yeah. Yeah, because they sought resources. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's super funny. And then all of that has just been morphed over time into just being this like scary thing to be feared. Don't want to be a witch. They're evil. Devil, whatever. So, and in the witch cackle too. Like, where did that laugh come from?
From your mom?
From my mom.
Deb, we love you, but I heard you have a beautiful cackle.
Oh my gosh, it's so
that we want to record it.
Oh my God, so bad. Like that, it's just like is also just another funny thing. Like, I was just such a weird little kid that most kids want to be like read a bedtime story and like sang to sleep. No, before I would go to bed every night, I asked my mom to do the witch laugh. And what I meant by that was from the Wizard of Oz, like the whole like laugh. And when she goes, I'll get you my pretty and your little dog too. Because I had a stuffed dog. His name was Muffin that I slept with every single night. And I wanted my mom to do that to me every single night before. And then I would just go off into sleepy, sleepy dreamland. Like who does that? Most kids are terrified of that kind of stuff, right? And I was like so soothed by this creepy laugh my mother did.
How funny.
And she was good at it.
I bet she's still good at it.
I bet she is too. We should get her to do it just for this.
Yes, I love that.
I love it, and I mean, I kind of like my laugh is witchy, but yeah. So all of those things. So how did it get from this scary, fearful, creepy thing into what a witch is now? Because now when you think about it, like just like today, right? You think about the wise woman. You think about the healer. You think about just nature and the elements and working again with the elements. And bless you.
Must be speaking truth.
No, it's plague. Okay. That's why you say bless you.
Because you can die?
Yeah, because
your
people just
heart.
thought you would just die.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because you would die from the common cold or even
I heard something about your heart stops for a millisecond when you sneeze.
I wonder if that's true.
I don't know.
I feel like that's
all the things you hear.
I know.
Which one do you trust?
Who knows? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so modern witches and spirituality turned into what it is now with tarot cards, divination, crystals, all the stuff that you think about now, and less green skin, pointy hats, and more, energy work. And
Still wear your avocado mask. You're okay. And you can wear a witch's hat, which I'm always so tempted. Like when we go hiking with like my
wear
husband
a
and my
witch hat.
kids, and it's just like, don't forget to bring your hat. And I'm always like, I want to bring my witch's hat. I should do it.
You should so do it and just watch what people do. That would be so much. We should do that. We should go on a hike with witch hats and just see what people do. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. But yeah, and so now it's more about being a witch is more about stepping more into your femininity, right? You're being more true to yourself in that feminine way, harnessing that feminine power, that feminine sovereignty. And I'm sure like there's so much around like the moon. You always, when you think about witches, you always see the painting with the big full moon and the witch in front of it. And that's, again, the moon has feminine energy, right? And there's moon rituals and our cycles as women sync up to the moon. So that's how that kind of plays in, right? To
I wish I knew more about it. Like exactly like the syncing and the cycles being synced, like when it goes through like the waning moon or the crescent,
I
like the
actually-
meaning of things
I
like
actually
that.
have like a whole thing that I wrote about it, which
Maybe
can
we
get
should
into
do an
later.
episode on
Yeah,
that.
on literally just the moon.
And even when you were talking about like the oracle cards and other like those are tools for strengthening your intuition. So a lot of people do like tarot or oracle cards or using a pendulum.
Yeah, like divination. So, like,
Divination.
you hear that word a lot. It's like, what is divination? It's like it's a tool. So divination is a tool to contact either like spirit or a deeper state of consciousness, your higher self, right?
Oh my
It's
gosh,
just
so
a
is the
tool.
Ouija board a divination
I'm just
tool?
saying.
Yeah, because it's just to count.
I mean, what's the difference in a Ouija board and a pendulum?
One is scary.
I mean, it just depends on like what you're swinging the pendulum over, right? Because they
Yes,
have
of
those little
course.
spirit boards just for the pendulum.
I've never used one. I've
neither.
made my own.
Really?
It's really easy
I have
to
one. I
sell.
got it in like some subscription box or something once.
Yeah, but I rarely use like unless I'm really wanting to either manifest something or want more clarity, I should say. I would do it, but not very often. I would say don't. Every time I teach on the pendulum, I say don't become dependent on the pendulum. And it's so funny because recently I've had a student tell me it's so hard, to not become dependent on the pendulum because it can be very accurate. But also we want people to be authentic and just trust themselves and their intuition and
And
not
being
something
safe.
else.
Like,
Of course.
all these tools, tarot and crystals, oracle cards, the pendulum, a Ouija board, like, do your homework, right? And protect yourself because you're opening up channels and anything can come through if you're not, having discernment or setting up
Oh,
spiritual
absolutely.
boundaries, right? So we're not saying like go buy yourself some stuff and start playing because it could go wrong. It's not,
Make sure to use it wisely, smart, and with
Yeah.
somebody who knows. Which, by the way, just to share with everyone, every Monday at 3:33 p.m., I do a live oracle card reading individual on our Instagram. So follow us under Witches Who Podcast. Mondays, I go live on Instagram. So if you like for me to pull a card for you, simply log in 3:33 p.m. Pacific time, and I'll pull a card for you for free.
Yes. Follow us at Witches Who Podcast on Instagram and eventually everywhere else. Okay. Please join Dee. She has a lot of really fun insights. And that's one way I know that you use divination tools in your practice, right? Or oracle cards. I definitely use a lot of cards too. I've actually been getting really into runes lately.
Ooh.
And you use them just like you would oracle cards. They're just like little pieces of wood. And also like the tree ogum, which I like to use. They're basically like Celtic runes. And you use them just like cards, and you kind of put them together and decipher the story or like the message
I want you
or
to
whatever.
teach me.
It's
Show me.
super fun. We should totally do it.
Maybe we'll do a live here and we'll
Yeah, good
everybody
idea.
can watch it on YouTube.
Yeah, that's what we should do. But yeah, there's so many different kinds of practices too. And also like just to touch again on like the Wicca stuff, like Wicca and even paganism is basically like the religion of witchcraft, right? And I think a lot of people are moving away from that. And for me specifically, like I don't resonate with any organized religion. I like to pull what I feel is truth from everything and kind of create my own base of religion, right? Or just my own personal belief system. I don't believe in like worshiping anything other than myself, for lack of like not in
And
an
Tucker.
ego way or anything else, but just like honoring like of course Tucker, you know, duh. Okay, anyways. Um but I just think that, you know, we're all coexisting and meant to learn from each other. And any like spiritual being that came before, even Jesus, right? Or our spiritual teachers, that we are meant to learn from, not necessarily worship.
Yeah.
So that's my little take on that. But
And something just on divination, and especially talking about religion. So in the Bible, they do talk about the bone. I forgot, but it was like these bones that highly religious people will throw,
Yeah.
and they will. I forgot just the name of it, but they wouldn't. They were only like selective individuals were the ones that were able to interpret. I don't remember if it was bones or some wood, something that would, and then it will be a message from God.
Yeah.
So like, how different is that from the cards or anything else?
Yeah, exactly. It's the same
Like
thing.
you're trusting that that person is like connected. Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. You know, and what other practices, what do you, when you're contacting spirit or your higher self or God or whatever you want to call it, like what are your practices?
I like to channel through getting into my breath and a deep meditation. And so coming
Like
into
prayer.
stillness. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Prayer.
Yeah.
So what did it say when you're praying, you're talking to God, when you're meditating, you're listening to God?
Yeah.
So just like that. And really, I always say when I'm channeling spirit, a lot of people, and I invite everyone to always do this, especially if you're new. It's like sit in meditation, make sure you have, just a space that is not full of junk around, just like a clear space, especially if you can do it in nature. But just close your eyes, connect to your breath, and just literally say, I would like to contact my spirit guides. And notice what you're noticing, notice what's coming through. And as soon as you begin to feel like a certain presence, because you will feel a presence. I always tell everybody, you will feel a presence. And when you begin to feel them come in, then you begin to ask the questions, do you serve light? Do you serve God? And the biggest question is, do you serve love? Because they can say, yes, I serve light, I serve God, but you don't know what God. Not everybody is believing in a God. I'm like you. I have the same, standards with my beliefs, and like I'm not in part of any organized religion. And so by when they cannot lie, true spirit of your highest truth cannot lie about love. So
The highest vibrational frequency.
it is. So, and you will feel, and when I talk to students after, they're like, Dee, that was crazy. It's like I begin to channel my guides, and it was feeling really good. And they can even have this really good energy and vibration, but it wasn't true when suddenly you no longer feel like it feels a little emptier because they step away. They're like, it's crazy how suddenly you don't feel them anymore. Like they're gone. And you're like, where did they go? Well, they weren't of your highest good. They were not here for your best interests. Yeah, and that's it. It's just prayer, meditation, and trusting that you are connecting to yourself. We are the universe. We are everything. God inside. So
Yeah, it's as you were talking, that's super interesting too, because like closing your eyes and just like feeling that presence, right? How often are you just like minding your own business, sitting at your desk or whatever, and you just like suddenly feel like somebody walked past you and you look and you're like, oh, nobody's there, and then you just go back to doing what you're doing. Like, don't even think twice about it, right? Like, I'm sure that happens
that's every
all the
day
time.
for me.
Yeah.
Every day, all day.
Yeah. You're like, oh, nobody was there. Weird. I thought my husband came home, or I thought my dog walked up, but nobody was there. And you don't think anything of it. You're like, oh, whatever. It was just my brain or whatever. But no, it was most likely spirit, right?
So what are you allowing in your house too? What spirit? So
My house is for sure haunted. You can hear it. It's really interesting. But yeah, so I did. Okay. So just like a little, segue back to witches, but I did this fun little thing where I went down a rabbit hole of like modern witches.
Ooh.
Okay, so there's like so much on the internet. Obviously, it's vast, but there's people are now putting themselves into categories of types of witches.
Oh, tell me more.
So I took like my favorite ones out of this gigantic list. So I thought it would be fun for me to list some of these off and then like kind of just decide like what kind of witches we want to be.
Ooh.
Okay, ready?
Okay,
Okay,
yes.
so here's just a few different types. So a green witch, which I've heard of that one before. And so green witch, I feel like it's probably like plants. I
Like
would
the
say,
nature witch?
Like nature witch, maybe.
Okay, but more green, like I'm the greenhouse witch, or like
Yeah, I don't know.
like I'm a planned mom type of witch.
That's what I'm thinking. Because there's also
Okay.
one called the hedge witch. Which what's a hedge witch then?
Well, I'm thinking hedgehog. So
Oh, I was thinking
know.
like bushes.
Of
Like a
course, no,
hedge.
it is.
Oh,
Yeah,
is that what
yeah,
it is?
yeah.
Like I don't even know, you know?
Okay.
So I thought that was kind of
Okay.
funny. There's a sea witch, which I immediately think of Ursula,
Yeah.
you know, from Little
Yeah.
Mermaid. But which could be all kinds of, you know, that
Somebody who has a connection to the ocean.
yeah, that water energy, you know, whatever.
Water communicates. It's very powerful.
Yeah.
Very cleansing, detox. Okay.
Totally. And it's funny too, because as I was reading some of these, a bunch of people like in my life started to come into mind. And it's like just their energy in general, like who they are. Like, oh, this is totally this person. You know what I mean?
Oh, you're like
it's kind of fun.
You're this texting them. You're this
yeah, like,
type of witch.
did you know you're a witch and this is no. Okay, so there's also an eclectic witch.
Ooh.
I like that one
Okay,
a lot. So it's like not really like any real type. It's just somebody that pulls from different types of witchery, like lots
That's
of
probably
different,
us.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay. Well, just keep listening. There's a sex witch.
Ooh.
I know. Like
What does she do?
I have no.
Just-
I didn't really read it.
Well, there's
super far.
sex magic.
I've heard of sex magic.
Okay,
Yeah, and
so
I mean you have to
maybe-
think too. Like, there's so much energy that goes into that, and you know,
Yeah, from
it's
the
like, I
root
could
chakra,
totally
when you
see-
climax, it's just like you can actually.
I mean, you're creating
manifest
life.
with- Yes.
You know what I mean? So like, yeah, that's. I mean, that's magic if
Okay.
I've ever heard of any.
Yes.
You know. Okay, there's also a hearth and home witch.
Oh.
I kind of like that. Like somebody that
yeah.
I feel like it's really cozy and like really creates a comfortable home.
Yeah, someone
know?
you can trust, lean on, always there, always reliable. Oh,
Yeah,
I like that.
safe. You know.
Yeah.
A cosmic witch.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
connected with aliens type of way.
Maybe you're just like astral, you know? I don't know, right? I don't know.
okay.
Or maybe it's somebody that's super connected to the moon and the moon cycles or
Okay.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
I can see that.
yeah.
I almost feel like a blood witch.
Okay,
would do
that's
that
the
one.
next one.
Oh, how
Blood-
funny.
Blood witch is
Oh.
the one next on the list.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, when I think of blood witch, that one makes me feel uncomfortable. Because then now I'm like, okay, blood, like, are we sacrificing animals now and like slicing our hands open and doing like blood
Yeah.
packs? Like, what is that? Or is it like
it's
you're thinking like menstrual?
Oh
blood
yeah.
and,
As soon
like,
for
yeah.
me, as soon as you said it, I was like, oh my gosh, that's a cycle. That's like
Yeah. Yeah. See that my
Okay.
brain went the other way.
you're the one who went to bed with the witch's cackles. So.
Totally. Yeah. So it had to be. I have to think spooky no matter what. There's a Celtic witch.
Ooh,
Which I
yeah.
resonate with. But then it's also what's the difference in a Celtic witch and a druid or modern druidry, right? So I would want to do a little bit more research there. But when I think about druidry, so that word, it's really, those were like pre-witches. Like the druids were said to be like the first healers, and which is interesting too, because in Ireland, where you said was the least amount of executions for witchcraft, is where druidry is from, you know, and they kind of went the opposite direction and steered clear of the church. And yeah, so there's still a lot of modern druids to this day that are really all about working with the elements. It's huge into, elemental magic and, you know, that there's like different like rituals of the three rays. There's a whole thing we can get into with druidry. We can do an episode on it, but I think like if a Celtic witch to me would be similar to that, or you know, just using like the Celtic gods and goddesses. Fascinating. And then the last one I wrote down was a white witch.
Aw.
Yeah, which I would think would be something like energy work and
I think of Glinda.
frequency. Glinda, like
The Glindas of the world.
yeah. So what type of witch are you?
Oh man, I think I'm a combination, but I think the eclectic
That one really resonated.
with the cosmic, with the green, with the white.
I know, you can just pull whatever you
Yeah.
want. I'm all of them.
I'm a combination of
depends
all
on
of
the
it.
day.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's fascinating. That is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's super fun. And all like when you think about the witch too, and like even blood witch and everything else, it's like there's so like witch is not a bad word. And I think that because of everything that happened with the witch trials, and even now we're still trying to shed that stigma of this word, right?
Yeah.
Like most people still to this day, you say, you know, I resonate, I'm a witch.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really go around telling people I'm a witch or anything like that. Like I didn't resonate with that word for a really long time, actually. But people are still like, oh,
Yeah.
like, oh, you're gonna sacrifice me to the devil or make me drink goat's blood.
Not if you behave.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
Right? Or it's like magic. And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
well, what is magic? Like, I'm not swinging a magic wand saying abracadabra, making doves fly out of hats and shit. No, I'm working with food and with nature.
Yes.
I'm working with energies, right? It's magic is not like what the movies have portrayed it to be.
Not at all.
So I think there's just a lot of misinterpretations and misconceptions around what magic and witchery really even is.
Our hearts beat without us telling them to beat.
Yeah, we have neurons in our stomach, in our heart, and in our brain.
They just work.
Yeah.
We're not telling them to do. They're doing it on their own.
Exactly.
And here we are.
Yeah.
Functioning humans.
Exactly.
Humans.
Exactly.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
Yeah. Well, this has been fun.
It has.
So, you know, just in closing, I mean, I think that we have taken a really long journey through the timeline of witchcraft from the very beginnings to what it is today.
So with everything we discuss on the enlightenment scale, where do witches stand now that we came full circle?
Full circle from they were healers to then they were criminals and now we're back to healers. I think they started pretty high up there because they were healers and they were wise, and then they stayed that way even though they were, you know, I think pretty high because they were the whole time they were being mass murdered because they were misunderstood, right?
Yeah. So I think nowadays, if I can measure it on the enlightenment scale, I would say I'll give witches nowadays, because we're going through so much discernment, an 88.
I love 88, and that one was in my head too. I was like 88 for sure. Mostly too because you have to give a little bit of leeway because I feel like it might even be going into the other end where it's like that's becoming people's identity now. Is like, I'm a witch, that's my identity. I'm gonna, you know, fully embody this like feminine whatever, and then down with the patriarchy, all this stuff, which is like so toxic in itself. Like we need both. We need men. We need women. We need that healthy balance of both to be a functioning society.
Yeah,
right.
The extremes, we get into trouble when we get into the extremes.
Yeah, and I think
either
like,
direction.
that's So 88, I would say full circle to now, mostly for that reason, because people take everything to the extreme.
Yeah,
100%. So if you have that intention and, you know, you're not losing yourself in this identity, like the point of it is to find yourself, find a deeper level of who you are, not lose yourself in an identity, right? As long as you're going at this from like that place of authenticity and it resonates and it feels good and you're building community and you're staying true to yourself, then you know, it'll keep climbing up that scale. You know what I mean?
I agree. No, this has been so fun. I enjoy it. I learned so much, and just
me too. I just freaking went through a whole past life in that episode.
Yes, so many downloads for future episodes. So thank you again, everyone, for listening. Check us out on social media under Witches Who Podcast. Don't forget, every Monday at 3:33 p.m., I do live oracle card readings on Instagram. On our page there. We'd love to see you there. Come and say hello. Let us what type of witch you are. If you have any questions, that's another opportunity to catch me live. Sometimes Shelby and I will be live together. But yeah, we just love to do this, and hopefully you maybe, you know, learn a little bit of a lot of things and maybe a lot about yourself in this episode. So, yeah.
If you want to be a witch, all you got to
Yes.
do is start getting to know yourself, you know?
Absolutely. So, tune in, stay curious.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to follow us on social media at Witches Who Podcast.